Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council's Program Finance and Administration Committee, also known as the NYMTC PFAC Committee. I'm Deborah Nelson, and I'm the Director of the Office of Policy Planning and Performance for the New York State Department of Transportation. And I am wearing orange, albeit not Nick's orange today, but to celebrate the win, and sorry I couldn't be there for the parade, but everybody wants to celebrate a winning team, so congrats to New York City for that. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on the NYMTC website within the next 2 weeks. Today's meeting is available by webinar as well as in person at the NYMTC office located at 25 Beaver Street in Lower Manhattan. For the meeting audience who are on the webinar, your lines will remain muted throughout the meeting. The chat pod is being monitored by NYMTC staff. During the public participation section of the agenda, registered speakers will be called on in the order of their registration. Registered speakers who are participating by webinar will be called on and their lines unmuted for their remarks. At this time, I will begin with the roll call. When I say your agency, I ask that each representative state your name and the NYMTC principal that you are representing. First, let's go with the voting members. New York State Department of Transportation, as mentioned, I'm Deborah Nelson, and I am representing Marie-Therese Dominguez. New York City Department of Transportation. New York City Department of Transportation.
Hi, good morning, Deb. Jeffrey Otto, representing New York City Department of Transportation, Commissioner Mike Flynn.
Thank you, Jeffrey. New York City Department of City Planning.
Hi, Connor Clark, representing Commissioner Cynthia Sherman of New York City Department of City Planning.
Thank you, Connor. We are having a little hard time hearing you. You were very quiet on that. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Do we have someone from the MTA? All right, I'll come back in case you're having trouble with your mic. Nassau County.
Joe Cuomo, representing Nassau County Executive, Bruce Blakeman.
Thank you, Joe. Suffolk County.
Morning, this is Lisa Pica, representing County Executive Ed Romaine.
Thank you, Elisa. Rockland County.
Pat Gurdon, representing Rockland County Executive Ed Day.
Thank you, Pat. Putnam County.
Barbara Barossa, representing Putnam County Executive Kevin Byrne.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. And you are quite quiet on the mic as well. And Westchester County.
Good morning, Craig Leader, representing Westchester County Executive Ken Jenkins.
Thank you, Craig. And MTA, we have people in the chat who have said they are here, but they couldn't unmute.
Hi, Deborah.
Deanna Grimes.
Deanna Grimes, MTA. Sorry, we hit the unmute button. Thank you. I'm representing Dana Libra.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, let's now go to the advisory members, Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Good morning. Jay Sheffield here on behalf of Executive Director Catherine Garcia.
Thank you, Jay. New Jersey Transit. Not sure if we have anyone here from New Jersey Transit. North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority.
Melissa Hayes here on behalf of Executive Director David Barrett.
Thank you, Melissa. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation.
Good morning. Robert Bilowa, representing Commissioner Amanda Lefton.
Thank you, Robert. Federal Transit Administration. Do we have anyone from FTA? Okay, the Federal Highway Administration.
Good morning, everyone. Gautam, representing New York Division Administrator Rick Markey.
Thank you, Gautam. And the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Okay. Well, thank you. By my count, and under our operating procedures, we have a quorum for today's meeting. At this time, I would like to turn it over to NYMTC's Executive Director, Adam Levine, to give his Executive Director's report. Adam?
Good morning, and thank you, Deborah. I am also bedecked in Nick orange and blue for the occasion, and we're all very excited down here at NYMTC's offices as the parade passes by, so literally. So, the following are some of the noteworthy events that have taken place since our last meeting in April. As always, it has been a very busy spring here at NYMTC, and here are several highlights of the extraordinary work we have underway. A transportation conformity determination has been finalized and is being proposed for PFAC adoption just a few minutes from now. The regional emissions analysis completed for this determination ensures that the proposed amendments to projects and programs in NYMTC's current plan and TIP are consistent with and conform to New York State's air quality goals as identified in the New York State Implementation Plan. Our New York Best Practice Model team, led by Assistant Director Minesh Patel and Senior Transportation Analyst Lynn Teese, conducted training sessions for our members and staff last month. With support from Cambridge Systematics, our NYBPM model consultant, we held both a hands-on technical workshop and an executive session that provided an overview of the model. Both sessions, which were offered in person and virtually, highlighted the enhancements that have recently been implemented, and over 50 people attended in total. The Survey Community of Practice met on May 15th with approximately 20 members in attendance. Resource Systems Group, the consultant for this project, provided a recap of the efforts to update NYMTC's 2010-2011 Regional Household Travel Survey to a more current year using recently and readily available data sources while we await the implementation of our upcoming full Regional Household Travel Survey. The presentation also included an introduction to the Transformer model, a machine learning model that will be used to help develop the synthetic trip diary. NYMTC's travel patterns reports for 2025 were released earlier this week. These reports summarize on both an annual and quarterly basis average weekday ridership on buses, railroads, subways, and ferries, as well as vehicular traffic crossing waterway bridges within the NYMTC planning area. All 4 quarters of 2025 were released, and the 4th quarter report was cited by Metro Magazine. All of these reports and so much more are available on our website at www.nymtc.org. Our Brown Bag webinar series continued with excellent and informative presentations in April and May. Our guests in April were from the Gateway Development Commission, and we heard about the enormous effort that is underway underneath the Hudson River to progress the Hudson Tunnel project. In May, we heard from New York State DOT on their Access for All program, focusing on accessible design within the public right-of-way. Our next Brown Bag webinar will be next Thursday, when we will hear from the New York Transit Museum as they celebrate their 50th anniversary. So see you then. NYMTC staff had important roles at the Walk, Bike, and Roll New York Symposium hosted in Tarrytown earlier this month by the Institute for Traffic Safety Management and Research. On the first day, Assistant Director Mark Maglienti and Mid-Hudson South Transportation Analyst David Lake gave a presentation on our recent Palisades Shared Use Path study. The next morning, Mark and New York City TCC Staff Director Sandra Reyes-Guerra gave a walking tour of the area, educating the 50 attendees on the Old Croton Aqueduct, the Empire State Trail, and Route 9 and Broadway complete streets. The tour took the participants along the Governor Mario M. Cuomo Bridge shared use path with spectacular views of the Hudson River. Lastly, our executive leadership training program finished up last week, and by all accounts, it was a great success. The program, which was led by our partners at the New York University Rudin Center and the NYU Tandon School of Engineering, included 25 mid-career representatives from our member agencies, the governor's office, the mayor's office, and our transportation agency partners. In the May and June sessions, participants heard from leaders such as Polly Trottenberg, Dean of the NYU Wagner School, Renee Reynolds, Executive Director of the Tri-State Transportation Campaign, and Laura Kavanaugh, former Commissioner of the FDNY. They also received guidance on communicating as leaders and strategizing for change. We have already heard from the participants that the connections they have made through the program with participants from other agencies are helping them in the work they do, and we know that this is one of the most important benefits of the program. We are already starting to plan for the next round of the program next spring. As I close my report, I want to thank the staff here at NYMTC, as well as our members, for all of your hard work. Your dedication and service to the people of New York City, Long Island, and the Lower Hudson Valley is, as always, very much appreciated. And with that, I'll pass the virtual microphone back over to Deborah.
Thank Thank you, Adam. I want to mention that I'm very impressed with you. Not only does your staff provide technical assistance to the members, but you guys are doing an amazing job of knowledge sharing and capacity building. You've taken it to a new level, and I really want to commend you on that. Doing some great work there. I also want to mention that Nathan Chadwick from the New Jersey Transit is in attendance as well. Just had problems with unmuting, so thank you, Nathan. Now we're going to continue with our presentation portion, continuing with the theme of some of your knowledge sharing and capacity building. Our first presentation will be NYMTC's Community Planning Workshop Program. Presenting on this topic will be Miriam Medina-Milford, a transportation analyst at NYMTC, and Miriam Salerno, Managing Director of the, I love this acronym, Placemaking, Outreach, and Engagement Team, or POET, at the Voorhees Transportation Center of Rutgers University. Mari and Miriam, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
Yes, we hear you.
Great. So my name is Miriam Medina, and I help run our Community Planning Workshop Program, or the CPWP, as I'll be referring to it. I'll be stepping in for Program Manager David Drits to provide an overview before we get into the presentation itself. As the name suggests, this program is about community. It's about whether children can ride a bike safely, whether families can walk to school, reach transit, get to downtown, visit a park, or move through their neighborhood comfortably. And it's about why planning matters. Programs supported through the MPO planning process, including Safe Streets and Roads for All, the Transportation Alternatives Program, and Reconnecting Communities are not just funding programs, they're tools that help make our cities, towns, villages, and suburbs safer and more connected. That is also the spirit behind the CPWP. NYMTC, as you may know, is the Metropolitan Planning Organization for New York City, Long Island, and the lower Hudson Valley. One of our core responsibilities is developing the region's long-range regional transportation plan. Our plan sets out the region's long-term transportation goals, investment priorities, and policy direction. So the fair question is this: what does a community planning workshop program have to do with regional transportation planning? The answer is that regional planning only works when it connects to local action on the ground. There's a phrase often used in planning: think globally, act locally. For NYMTC, the idea is similar. Our regional transportation plan helps us zoom out and understand the big picture. Then, the helps us zoom back in and provide planning assistance where it's needed. One of the most important features in our regional transportation plan is the identification of coordinated development emphasis areas. These are communities, downtowns, corridors, and activity centers where future growth should be advanced with transportation access in mind. Put more simply, there are places where land use and transportation decisions need to work together. That is where the CPWP comes in. The program provides targeted planning assistance to communities that are looking at these local challenges and opportunities. Through the CPWP, municipalities can examine how transportation, land use, safety, access, redevelopment, and public space fit together. The goal is to help communities move from broad planning goals to practical recommendations that they can actually use. The CPWP is not intended to produce a plan that sits on the shelf. It's meant to help communities clarify priorities, engage stakeholders, understand existing conditions, and identify realistic next steps. These next steps can support future planning, funding, and implementation. In that sense, the CPWP serves as a bridge. It connects NYMTC's regional transportation goals with the local decisions that shape how people actually experience the transportation system. Today, we're going to give you a closer look at how that process works in practice. I'm very pleased to introduce Miriam Salerno, Managing Director of the Placemaking Outreach and Engagement Team at the Allen and Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University. Miriam and her amazing team have been working tirelessly with us on the CPWP for the past few years. They have helped bring the program to life through community planning, technical analysis, public engagement, and practical recommendations. Miriam will walk through some examples of the CPWP process and the communities that have participated in the program. With that, I am pleased to pass the baton to Miriam.
Great. Thank you so much, Amari. And thank you, everyone, for inviting me to be here today with you guys at the office here in NYMTC. It was an adventure this morning getting here from New Jersey, so I am wearing blue as well, but I didn't have anything orange. And I really feel like I experienced the parade on my way here, so that was great. Okay, so I'm going to start. Amari went over some of this as well, but just to reiterate, you know, our community planning workshop program works with municipalities and communities on the ground on a variety of planning topics and areas: downtown development, access to stations, safety improvements, improvements on connectivity. We look at complete streets, parking, streetscapes improvements. So really a whole range of municipal planning topics that fall under the community planning workshop program. We take an approach that kind of has three core components to the work that we do for these municipal planning projects. They really are community-driven and community-led. So we spend a lot of time working with the local officials on the ground, whoever our representatives are for this project. They really help us to craft the topic and craft the approach for the project. And then we have a really nice public participation component. So you're going to hear a little bit about some of the ways that we've engaged directly with communities, but it's really important that public participation is central to developing these plans. So we have our part one is kind of understanding existing conditions. Part two, like I mentioned, is engaging the community. And then part three is preparing the report and recommendations. So a few things that we do, I'm just kind of walk through our process a little bit quickly before we get to the example. So background and existing conditions, as we know, it's a really important step in the planning process. We always do a site visit where we see these locations on the ground. We walk the streets with the municipal officials, have sort of like a guided tour of the area that we're looking at. So it's been great. My team and I have been all over the NYMTC region. It's been quite a lot of fun to get out and explore. And then we develop a profile of the project area. We use a variety of data sets and techniques and some of them are listed here on the slide, to really make sure that we kind of have a full picture of what's going on the ground to create these community profiles. We always do a plan review, looking at existing documents, and, you know, where applicable, depending on the topic that we're covering, we'll do some additional desktop research or subject matter interviews as necessary. Engaging with the community. This is where we have a lot of fun because we really get out and we talk to people in these different communities, and every single community that we've worked with here through this program is very different. So we work hard with our local partners to craft an engagement strategy that is going to work for that project, and it really does look different. So sometimes we'll do in-person engagement. We'll attend community events. We'll go canvassing to businesses. We'll do tabling events. Depending on the complexity of the project, sometimes there's a more robust stakeholder engagement component if there are multiple jurisdictions involved or multiple communities involved in the project area. But we always have our Keystone Community Planning Workshop, which is our one big event where we bring everyone together, the public, the stakeholders, other representatives that may be interested in the project for a large workshop. And it is either in person or virtual. Typically, more often, we do have these virtually because we found that we get a better participation. But again, it depends on the community and what their needs are. And then we prepare a report. So we work with our community with our subject matter experts and the community to draft recommendations for improvements. When applicable, we'll do visual renderings, and I'm going to show you some of those. We do site-specific recommendations as micro as looking at a particular crosswalk or particular intersections, and we also provide strategic recommendations for the entire project area. It might be the entire village, or it might be an entire corridor, and that all gets packaged together in a report for the community that has a compilation of everything that we've done, everything we recommend, and most importantly, funding recommendations for what they can do to implement these changes. So here's just an approximate schedule or timeline. Typically, we spend about 9 months to a year on a project. Some have taken longer. Some have moved a little quicker, but as I mentioned, I kind of went through these steps, and this is sort of our general timeline. It does depend on the community. Sometimes these things kind of get moved around a little bit, but these are fast-moving projects. So I'm going to now walk through 4 project examples that we've done over the past few years. The first one I'm going to talk about is in Cold Spring, and I guess I want to pause here to sort of say that one of the things that's great about this program is that we're really able to kind of create something that's unique to the community. So every single one of these projects has been, a little bit different. And we've had to use different techniques and strategies depending on what the problem was that we were trying to solve. So in this example in Cold Spring and Putnam County, we were looking at the village area. They came to us with this issue because during peak tourist season, the village gets inundated with traffic, and both, vehicular traffic, foot traffic, and the downtown gets very congested. And so they wanted to kind of understand sort of where the key problem spots were and how we might be able to help them think about ways to improve traffic flow and improve pedestrian safety, especially during these peak seasons. So for this, I've got kind of our key components for each of these projects here, and I've highlighted some of the things that are unique. So for this one, we did a site visit, we did our background analysis. What was really important for this community was presentations to the governing body. So we worked very closely, not just with the mayor, but with the entire governing body along the way to make sure that everyone was really looped in on the process. And so we presented to them a couple of times. We put together a story map, which has been a really important tool for us. And you can see there's just a screenshot of the story map here. But what the story maps allow us to do, and we've done this for many projects, is really to create a visual roadmap for the community so they can see where the problem spots are that we're trying to identify and educate the community before they give their input. And typically we do a survey as well as the in-person meeting. So the story map goes out, people can learn about what we're doing and then answer the survey questions. And we had a virtual workshop and then put together the report. So here's a few, as I mentioned, we come up with village-wide recommendations. So in Cold Spring, just a few of the things that we brought into the report here are some recommendations about the sidewalk network, improving wayfinding, lighting was a big issue, especially for pedestrian safety, and then we looked at some specific intersection improvements and traffic calming. So these are the key locations that we looked at in Cold Spring. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but we really honed in on some specific areas, which then gives the community actionable steps to take for improvements. And so here's some examples of some of the things in this report. You can see we've got renderings of how some of these infrastructure improvements could be implemented in Cold Spring. And this report is available on the NYMTC website, so if anyone is interested, it's easily downloadable. Pelham. So this is the next example, and this one was really interesting because it was essentially a sort of a safe routes to school project in that there was an extremely dangerous corridor between the high school and the middle school and the field, Glover Fields, where the students go for after-school sports and practices. And you can see the project area is highlighted in the image below. This clicker's going nuts. And so for this project, not only did we have multiple jurisdictions involved, there was Pelham, there was Mount Vernon, there was state DOT land property involved, and the county involved. And so we really had to have a robust stakeholder engagement. So we established a stakeholder working group that really guided this entire project. And we also had to work directly with the school district to do outreach specifically to the students. And so we had the superintendent of schools on our project team for this. And so you can see what we were really trying to do was reroute student traffic. You can see in the slide the current walking route really takes them under a dangerous underpass and across the exit ramp to the Hutchinson River Parkway, which is a doozy of an intersection. It's a long crosswalk. They actually had to hire a constable to be there every day to help the students cross, and it was very dangerous. So I'm going to just, so we honed in on some specific problem spots along that corridor to implement some safety improvements. And I don't know if I have time, but I had a little video here to just show you how we did some targeted outreach to the teens. I don't know if it's going to play or not. No. Okay. There you go.
Many students walk every day, starting from Wolf Lane and Columbus Avenue, passing through the dark underpass with narrow sidewalk and crossing in front of the Hutchinson River Parkway ramp with the help of a constable. It's not
what was great about this video was that it was shown to every single high school kid in the school. All of the teachers, the superintendent worked with all of the teachers to make sure that responses from the student population. And I'm going to go, you guys saw this all in the video, so I'm going to skip all these slides. Oh, and one more thing about Pelham is that probably like 2 months ago, we met with the project team. We all reconvened again because they are actively working to implement those recommendations right now and trying to get some of those crosswalk improvements done before the next school year. So it's a really exciting success story for the Community Planning Workshop Program. So the next example is Haverstraw in Rockland County. So this one was interesting because what we really tried to do with this project, Haverstraw has kind of the central downtown, and they have a lot of new development out at the waterfront near the ferry. And they came to the Community Planning Workshop Program with this idea to better connect kind of what they call the ferry area of Haverstraw with the downtown. In order, the ferry area is all new development. There's a lot of people who live there who are commuting on the ferry to go to the Ossining train station to get here to Manhattan. And they found that community is pretty isolated from the rest of the village. So they wanted to look at ways to better connect these kind of two parts of the community. So we worked with them to do a path analysis where we looked at different walking routes from the ferry terminal to the downtown, taking in a bunch of considerations about sidewalks, about pedestrian safety, amenities, shade, traffic flow, to come up with a preferred walking route that we then worked with them to create recommendations about how they can make improvements. What was interesting about this project that was different from other ones was that we actually had a joint community open house instead of a traditional planning workshop program. So there are several projects going on in Haverstraw at the same time, and we noticed in speaking with some of the other project teams for their projects that there was sort of outreach fatigue, and we decided to join forces with some of these other planning projects in the community to have one single open house. And so all of the projects that were going on at the same time had stations around the room. We all gave a presentation, and then the community could kind of flow around the room and talk to each of us. So it was great. We had a huge turnout. We got lots of great feedback. And so this is just an example of how this community planning workshop program really does adapt to meet the different needs and contexts of the community. I'm going to kind of go quickly, but yeah, so we came up with recommendations. Again, we were really looking at activating these the walking paths between the downtown and the ferry. We look at ways to expand transportation options and strategies that can really help promote community-driven economic growth. Haverstraw has a lot of great bones. It has a really vibrant community, and there are lots of ways that we can use transportation to kind of drive economic development in Haverstraw. So the last project I'm going to talk quickly about is in Limbrook in Nassau County, and this project, we're sort of in the final stages of wrapping up the report for this project, but what I want to talk about here is that this one, it was a little bit different in that it kind of brought in a lot of the placemaking components of planning, and so we were looking at a lot of ways to activate space in Limbrook. They have a great downtown right near the train station, has a lot going for it, and they wanted to revitalize their Atlantic Street corridor, which currently has a lot of vacant storefronts, and so we were looking at ways to kind of bring that to life. So we looked at several placemaking sites around the train station with the goal to kind of create a cohesive feel for the Limbrook downtown. And so here are some of the sites that we looked at on this map. Again, this report will be available very shortly on the NYMTC website. We looked at gateway intersections for the downtown. So there are two massive intersections that are on either end of Atlantic Avenue. And so we are trying to come up with recommendations for streetscaping that can make it feel like you have entered a specific place. So it starts with that. And then we look at some parcels around the downtown. This is proposed pocket park. Currently there is a parcel of property on Broadway owned by PSE&G, and the Lynbrook officials are working with PSE&G to turn that into a multi-use pocket park. So we brought in a landscape architect as part of our team. We're at a big university, so it's great we have those resources when we need them, and she designed a pocket park for that location. We also looked at options on Atlantic Avenue to increase activation, and so we came up with recommendations for them to either implement a parklet program or consider open streets activation for Atlantic Avenue. And we were able to provide these really great visual renderings of what that could look like to help the community really visualize how these changes could impact their downtown. They also were very interested in public art. So the project talks a lot about different locations for potential public art installations. The stanchions and the trestles at Saperstein Plaza, which is right near the train station, you know, are currently, don't leave much to, you know, they're just gray cement brick, you know, installations. They're totally functional, but they wanted to imagine ways that they could be repurposed with public art, so it creates a welcoming environment for folks when they get off the train and they're heading to Atlantic Avenue. So we created these great visual renderings of what that could look like, again, to help them imagine how these changes could be implemented. And then we also looked at some downtown revitalization strategies, temporary uses for vacant storefronts, like pop-up shops or temporary art installations. We met with the Chamber of Commerce on this project a few times to really hone these recommendations to make sure that there were things that A, weren't already being considered by the Chamber of Commerce, or B, were in line with kind of where the Chamber of Commerce was heading and their goals for the municipality. So that is all included in the report. Yeah, and so I've talked really fast and I went through a lot, but I think we're going to open up the floor for questions or discussions about the community planning workshop. Thank you.
Wow,
and Amari,
thank you. Yep, this is quite impressive. So thank you, Amari and Miriam. You know, it really struck me how it's, you know, very community-centered, and you mentioned, you know, meeting them where they are and really building from these community strengths. But most importantly, you had actionable steps. I mean, this is really very impressive. So thank you so much. I want to ask the members if you have any questions about this presentation or this program. Does anyone have any questions?
It's Barbara Barosa from Putnam. Not a question, but I wanted to say thank you to Rutgers and Miriam. This was a very big undertaking for Putnam County with the town of Carmel and Cold Spring, and we really appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Barbara.
Hi, this is Craig Later in Westchester, and I was actually going to do the same thing. And I'm very impressed with the additional outreach that has been done since in the Pelham Mount Vernon area since I was last part of this. So I'm really happy to see that this is moving forward. And I think it's a testament to Miriam and her team and the work that they've done. Everyone was able to see just how complex this situation was, and they really did a great job of not only engaging but coming up with some really creative plans and proposals to help try to address this really unfortunate situation that that we're encountering here. So thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Do we have any other questions or comments from the members? We do have some time for a few questions from the audience, if there are any. Rosanna, do we have any questions from the meeting site, or Stephanie from the chat?
Right now, there are no questions in the chat, but I'll jump in and let you know if I see any.
Okay.
We do have a question in the meeting site.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation.
Hold on, sorry. Ali, you're going to need to come
to the mic.
Thank you for the presentation. It was great. My question is how this process is started, how to initiate this request from the community or from the agency.
Thank you. Amari, did you hear that question? I don't know if you want to answer that on behalf of the team about how the communities are sort of selected for the program. We work with the member counties, but Amari, do you want to talk a little bit? Because that usually happens. You and David are involved in that.
Yep, I mean, you already kind of hit it. So usually we reach out to the member or the county to see if there are any municipalities that they feel like could use the help. And so then we coordinate with the member and then finally the actual location to kind of see what the community needs and work from there. And then that gets into what Miriam was talking about before and following that usual process of scoping out, doing some preliminary research, and then building out something that is feasible and that makes sense, and then they could take that and implement it in the future. But it all starts with communication with our member.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Well, I know I, for one, am going to be following up to learn more about this, because this is exactly what planning can be for communities, and really shows the strength of what an MPO can do and how they can work with their partners. So very impressive.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. And thank you again for inviting us to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. All right. Well, that was great. Now we're going to move on to our next presentation. We'll be moving into some of the business aspects. The presentation will be on NYMTC's 2026 Transportation Conformity Determination, which NYMTC's members will be voting on later in this meeting. Presenting on this topic is German Hernandez, our Senior Transportation Analyst at NYMTC. German, I'm handing the mic over to you.
Thank you, Deborah, and good afternoon to all in attendance. I'll be giving a quick overview on what conformity is and NYMTC's role in demonstrating conformity for the region. So speaking of our region, this map shows NYMTC's 10-county planning area, which is home to 12.8 million people, approximately 63% of New York State's population and 4% of the national population. Our planning area covers approximately 2,440 square miles and is divided to sub-regional areas, each served by a Transportation Coordinating Committee, or TCC. Rockland, Putnam, and Westchester counties are served by the Mid-Hudson South TCC. Nassau and Suffolk counties are served by the Nassau-Suffolk TCC, and the Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island, Brooklyn, and Queens are served by the New York City TCC. This graphic represents an overview of NYMTC's planning process, including key activities and requirements. This presentation will focus on transportation conformity and the regional emissions analysis that was undertaken for it, which analyzes congestion and air quality impacts of the future transportation system. For those that are familiar with the process, transportation conformity is a process by which transportation planning connects to air quality planning. So conformity comes from the requirements of the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, which included national ambient air quality standards. And areas that do not meet these air quality standards are designated to be in non-attainment and require a transportation conformity determination in order to be eligible for federal transportation funding. Transportation conformity focuses on regional vehicle emissions, including mobile source emissions from cars, trucks, motorbikes, and transit. The conformity process starts with the air quality standards set by the Clean Air Act amendments, as mentioned before, and in response, states develop state implementation plans, which detail how they intend to meet those standards by target years. As part of these implementation plans, the state addresses areas designated to be in non-attainment and sets budgets or limits for motor vehicle emissions. MPOs like NYMTC must show that planned improvements to transportation systems will not result in those budgets being exceeded through a regional emissions analysis. To do this, future travel is forecast to determine emission levels for milestone years set by the state implementation plans. And if the forecasted emissions fall below the state's budgets, then the MPO's plan and TIP conform to the SIP. The 2026 Transportation Conformity Determination and the related regional emissions analysis are in response to amendments to our federal fiscal years 2026 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program and 2026 to 2055 Regional Transportation Plan. The two areas on this slide are the focus of the required regional emissions analysis for conformity determination. On the left is an area designated as being a non-attainment for a 2008 ozone standard, and on the right is an area designated as maintenance for fine particulate matter, also known as PM2.5, another pollutant category. A maintenance area is a former non-attainment area that has been redesignated to attainment by US EPA, and while the area is no longer classified as non-attainment, a conformity determination is still required for the pollutant. There are various bodies with which NYMTC works with throughout the conformity process. An important partner is the Interagency Consultation Group, the ICG, which is made up of representatives from several environmental and transportation agencies at the federal and state levels. These representatives oversee the conformity process and are responsible for ensuring that all federal requirements are met, including but not limited to the use of latest available planning assumptions, the use of an acceptable travel demand model and emissions post-processor, and the appropriate selection of transportation projects for their regional emissions analysis. You may have noticed from the previous slide that the areas beyond the NYMTC planning area were included for the regional emissions analysis. We coordinate with our neighboring MPOs listed here, where non-attainment areas extend into both of our planning regions. Finally, but certainly not least, we have our member agencies provide us with the project information that we need to perform our analysis and properly forecast project impacts on regional emissions. There are four main steps in NYMTC's regional emissions analysis. We begin with taking project information given to us by our members to code highway, transit, and ITS projects into our travel demand model, the New York Best Practice Model, also known as the New York BPM. The New York BPM is run to generate vehicle miles traveled and vehicle hours traveled for the milestone years required by the state implementation plan. We take the BPM outputs and combine them with the US EPA MOVES tool to generate transportation emissions at the county level for each scenario year. These forecasted emissions are compared with the SIP budgets to determine whether our TIP and plan conform with those budgets. We held a 31-day public comment period for the draft of our conformity determination from April 27th to May 27th of this year. During this period, we also had held virtual public presentations on May 12th. Comments from the public for this round of conformity have been included and responded to in our transportation conformity determination. And we're happy to confirm that the amendments to the federal fiscal years 2026 to 2030 TIP and the 2026 to 2055 Regional Transportation Plan do conform with the applicable New York State SIP for both ozone and PM2.5. Thank you again for all of your time.
Well, thank you, Chairman, for that very informative presentation. It's clear an awful lot goes into this transportation conformity determination. Do the members have any questions for Herman, for the Chairman? We do have some time for questions from the audience, if there are any. Rosanna, do we have any questions on the meeting site?
We do not.
Okay. And then Stephanie, do we have any questions in the chat?
We do not have any questions in the chat.
All right, so thank you again, German, for that presentation. And now we're going to move on to the next item of the agenda. Hold on. I guess just, okay, so the next item is, I apologize, the next item is the public participation section. We will now begin the public participation segment of this meeting. We will hear from registered speakers with prepared remarks. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to give their remarks. We will hear from these participants in the order that they have registered. We ask that all speakers limit their comments to relevant transportation and planning related items. Rosanna, are there any registered speakers for today's meeting?
Here I am.
Okay. Well, then we will now move on to the action items on the agenda. All material related to these action items have been posted on the NYMTC website at www.nymtc.org. So the first action is to accept the April 16th, 2026 meeting synopsis. I ask all voting members to announce your name and the agency you represent when you make or second a motion. May I have a motion to accept the April 16th, 2026 meeting synopsis?
Motion to accept, Barbara Barosa, Putnam County.
Thank you, Barbara. May I have a second?
Joe Cuomo, Nassau County. I'll second that.
Thank you, Joe. Does anyone object to this motion? All right. Hearing no objections, the meeting synopsis is accepted. Thank you all. So the next action item is to adopt Resolution 612, amendments to the state fiscal year 2025 to 2026 and 2026 to 2027 Unified Planning Work Program. I will ask Setu Allen to introduce this resolution. Setu.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So resolution number 612. This is an amendment that affects two state fiscal years, 25-26 and 26-27. And to summarize what is in the attachment, Attachment 1 and Attachment 2, Attachment 1 has requests from New York City DOT and NYMTC staff to reprogram funding from UPWP tasks that will require a little bit less funding to complete to tasks that will require some additional funding to complete. In addition, attachment number 2 includes a request by the Shinnecock Indian Nation to add their long-range plan update to the other studies catalog contained within the 26-27 UPWP for information and collaborative purposes. None of these actions require new funding. NYMTC staff requests that you adopt this resolution.
Excellent. Thank you, Setu. May I have a motion to adopt Resolution number 612, amendments to the state fiscal year 2025 to 2026 and 2026 to 2027 Unified Planning Work Program?
Motion, Pat Gurdon, Rockland County.
Thank you, Pat. May I have a second?
Second, Elisa Pica, Suffolk County.
Thank you, Elisa. Is there any discussion? All right, so then we will now vote by roll call, starting with the lower Hudson Valley. Putnam County?
Aye.
Rockland County?
Aye.
Westchester County?
Aye.
All right, moving to Long Island, Nassau County?
Aye.
Suffolk County?
Aye.
Then New York City Department of Transportation?
Aye.
New York City Department of City Planning?
Aye.
And then finally, Metropolitan Transportation Authority?
Aye.
And the New York State Department of Transportation votes aye. Thank you all, and the motion passes. So the next action item is to adopt Resolution 613, the Transportation Conformity Determination for the federal fiscal years 2026 to 2030, the Transportation Improvement Program, and 2026 and 2020 to 2055 Regional Transportation Plan as amended. I will ask Chairman Hernandez to please introduce this resolution. Chairman? Chairman, you may be muted. If Chairman is not there, do we have someone else who might be able to introduce?
Deb, I could introduce this. It's Mark
That'd be great,
McGinty.
Mark.
Sorry about that. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Yeah, we're asking to adopt Resolution 613, which shows that amendments to the plan and the TIP are meet the transportation conformity determination requirements. And as German just displayed on the presentation earlier, the amendments do conform to the state implementation plan for air quality. So we ask that you please adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. So may I have a motion to adopt Resolution 613, Transportation Conformity Determination for the federal fiscal years for the 2026-2030 TIP and the 2026-2055 Regional Transportation Plan as amended.
Motion, Connor Clark, New York City Department of City Planning.
Thank you, Connor. May I have a second?
Joe Cuomo, Nassau County. I'll second that.
Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? All right, so we'll once again do by roll call, starting in the lower Hudson Valley, Putnam County.
Aye.
Rockland County.
Aye.
Westchester County.
Aye.
And Long Island, Nassau County.
Aye.
Suffolk County.
Aye.
And moving to New York City Department of Transportation.
Aye.
New York City Department of City Planning.
Aye.
And then finally, Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Aye.
And New York State Department of Transportation votes aye. Thank you all, and that motion passes. So the next two, as per NYMTC's operating procedures, we are required to report on recent actions taken by members by mail ballot. I will ask Adam Levine to report on these actions. Adam?
Thank you again, Deborah. On May 12, 2026, the voting members of PFAC unanimously adopted Resolution Number 611, revised selection of project proposals to be funded through the federal fiscal year 2025 Section 5310 Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program, which provides funds for transportation projects and/or programs that serve the special needs of transit-dependent populations beyond traditional public transportation services, as well as complementary paratransit services under the Americans with Disabilities Act. On June 8, 2026, the voting members of PFAC unanimously adopted Resolution Number 614, Distribution of Federal Fiscal Year 2026, Section 166, FTA FIFA World Cup Funding, which provides funding support for member agencies engaged in transit activities related to the FIFA World Cup. NYMTC's operating procedures allow for actions by mail ballot and require that the actions are reported publicly during the next scheduled meeting, which I am doing today. Resolutions 611 and 614 are available on NYMTC's website, along with the other resolutions from today's meeting. I'll now return the microphone to Deborah. Deborah?
Thank you, Adam. I will now take the microphone. So let's continue with the confirmation of our next PFAC meeting, which is scheduled for September 17th, 2026 at 11:30. That's in the morning. To conclude today's meeting, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Lisa Pica, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Elisa. May I have a second?
Second, Pat Gurton.
Thank you, Pat. So does anyone object to this motion, or would you like to go see the festivities of the parade? Hearing no objections, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.